The road stretched endlessly under a burning sky, and Aaron walked alone across the dry earth that cracked beneath his boots, the dust rising like smoke with every tired step he took. His throat ached from thirst, his skin burned from the sun, and his thoughts felt as heavy as the pack on his shoulders. He had been walking for days, maybe weeks. The horizon never seemed to change, and the silence of the wasteland pressed against his mind like a weight he could not lift. He was once a soldier, though you would not know it now. His clothes were torn, his blade dulled, and his spirit worn thin. He had seen too much of the world to believe in anything noble anymore. War had stripped away the colors from his heart and left behind only the gray of survival. He was searching, though he did not know for what. Perhaps for forgiveness, perhaps for peace, or perhaps for a reason not to give up entirely. The sun hung above him like an unblinking eye. No wind, no sound, not even the cry of a bird. The land was dead and dry, like bones scattered beneath an endless blue sky. His canteen sloshed faintly when he lifted it to his ear, and he grimaced. The sound was too light, too hollow. He knew there was barely enough water left for one more day if he was careful, maybe two, if the gods were kind, though he no longer prayed to them. Each step carried him farther from the last village, a place where faces had turned away when he asked for water. Strangers saw his ragged clothes and his weary eyes, and pretended not to hear him. The world had grown cold, he thought, colder than steel and sharper than hunger, and still he walked, as if motion itself could keep his heart from turning to stone. He remembered the boy he once was, the one who believed in stories of knights and dragons and honor, and he almost laughed at how foolish that sounded now. Dragons were myths, tales for children, and honor was a luxury for men who never went hungry. Yet as he stared across the shimmering horizon, he could not shake the feeling that something unseen was waiting, something alive beneath the stillness. The heat shimmered in the air, bending light into strange shapes. He blinked, sweat stinging his eyes, and for a moment thought he saw a shadow move far ahead, small and quick and low to the ground. He squinted, but it vanished when he tried to focus, maybe just a trick of the light. He thought, though, the feeling that he was being watched would not leave him by midday. He reached a rise of stone where the road curved around a deep ravine. He stopped to rest, leaning against a boulder, breathing hard, his chest tight, his legs trembling. He opened the canteen and let a single drop touch his tongue. It was warm and metallic, but it gave him the strength to stand again and look out over the edge below the ravine. The ground was littered with rock and bone, the remains of beasts that had died long ago, and yet through the silence he thought he heard something faint and fragile, a sound like a whimper, like someone calling for help. Aaron frowned, his pulse quickening. He stood still, listening. The wind was quiet, but the sound came again, weak and trembling from somewhere below, and though every part of him set to keep walking, to save his strength, to think of his own survival, he felt his feet move toward the edge, drawn by something he could not explain, something like a memory of who he used to bar, and moved slowly down the rocky slope, his boots slipping on loose stones, his hands scraping against sharp edges as he searched for a safe path. The heat pressed against him like a wall, the air dry enough to cut his lungs with every breath he took. Below him the sound grew clearer, no longer just a faint echo, but a soft, broken cry that seemed to tremble with fear and pain. He followed it, guided only by instinct and a feeling he could not name. When he reached the bottom of the ravine, the air was cooler, shaded by cliffs that rose high above like the ribs of a giant beast. The ground was littered with bones, bleached white by time, and a few scattered feathers, long dried to dust. He stepped carefully, the cries coming from behind a cluster of fallen stones and thorny brush. He pushed them aside and froze, his heart pounding as he saw what lay before him. Curled up among the rocks was a small creature no larger than a child. Its scales, once bright, now dull and cracked, its wings folded tight against its body, trembling with every breath. Its tail lay limp in the dirt, eyes half closed, glowing faintly like dying embers. It looked so fragile that for a moment Aaron thought it was already dead, until it moved its head weakly and looked up at him. Their eyes met, and the world seemed to stop for an instant. Aaron forgot the heat, the thirst, the ache in his limbs. Everything faded except the creature before him. He had never seen anything like it, not in all his years on battlefields or wandering the wilds. Its shape was that of a dragon, though far smaller, its face almost innocent, its voice, when it spoke, barely a whisper. Please, just one sip of water. The words struck him like a blade through his chest. His hand went instinctively to the canteen at his side, the one thing keeping him alive. It was nearly empty. He knew that giving even a little might mean death for himself, yet the sight of the creature, the way it trembled, the way it tried to stay proud even in its weakness, it stirred something inside him, something human that he thought long dead. He knelt beside it, his shadow falling across the small dragon. He could see where the sun had burned its skin raw, where its lips cracked from thirst. Its claws dug weakly into the dirt as if trying to hold on to the last shred of strength. Aaron hesitated, his fingers gripping the canteen tightly, his mind filled with every reason to walk away, but his heart whispered otherwise. He opened the cap slowly, the faint scent of metal and dust rising from within. The dragon child watched silently, eyes wide as if afraid to hope. Aaron raised the canteen to its lips and tilted it, letting a few drops fall. The creature flinched, then drank greedily, the sound soft but desperate, and when it looked up again there was light returning to its eyes. Aaron stared, unable to move, as the glow spread faintly across the dragon's body like sunlight breaking through storm clouds. He did not know what he had just done, only that it felt right in a way nothing else had for a very long time. The dragon child lowered its head weakly, the last drops of water shining on its scales like dew under morning light. Aaron sat beside it, silent, breathing hard from the climb and from something deeper, something that stirred in his chest like a forgotten memory. He watched as the creature blinked slowly, its golden eyes clearer now and filled with something he had not seen in a long time. Tracy had no idea how such a creature could exist here in this desolate canyon. No rivers, no trees, no signs of life, only stone and heat and silence. Yet the small dragon was real. He could feel the faint warmth of its breath against his arm, see the trembling rise and fall of its chest. He wanted to ask how it came to be here, but his voice caught in his throat as if words did not belong. In a moment like this, the dragon child moved its tail slightly, dragging it weakly through the dust as it whispered thank you, its voice softer than the wind. Aaron looked at his canteen and saw that it was empty, completely drained. There would be no more water for him, not even a drop, but he could not bring himself to regret what he had done. The creature had needed it more than he did, and that was all that mattered about them. The sun began to shift lower, painting the cliffs in gold and crimson. Light shadows stretched long across the ravine, and the air grew cooler still. Aaron knew he could not stay here forever. Night would fall and the desert cold would bite harder than the heat ever did. He looked at the small dragon again, wondering if it could even survive the night in its weakened state. He reached for his cloak, pulling it off his shoulders and draping it gently over the creature, the fabric rough and worn, but enough to keep it warm. The dragon shivered, then settled its breathing, slowing to a soft rhythm, almost peaceful. Aaron sat beside it, watching the horizon, the first stars beginning to appear faintly above the mountains. He thought about the roads he had walked, the battles he had fought, and the faces he had forgotten, and wondered why it felt like all of that had led to this single moment in a forgotten canyon with a dying dragon child. The air carried a strange hum, then a faint vibration that rippled through the ground. Aaron frowned, looking around the cliffs, but saw nothing, only the fading light. Then he noticed the glow. Again, faint but stronger than before, spreading slowly beneath the scales of the creature like liquid fire flowing through its veins. The dragon opened its eyes, meeting his gaze with, "I look both ancient and young." Its voice, now clearer, said, "You gave me more than water, human. You gave me life." Aaron stared, unable to speak, his heart pounding with a mixture of awe and fear. He did not understand what was happening, but he knew, somehow, that his life would never be the same again. The glow that shimmered beneath the dragon child's scales brightened with every breath, its warmth filling the cold air around them. Aaron could feel the vibration in the ground, soft at first, then steady, like the heartbeat of the earth itself. He watched as cracks of golden light traced along the creature's wings, faint patterns like ancient runes, forming and fading in rhythm with its breathing. He wanted to move, but awe held him still. Dragon child raised its head slowly, its strength returning, though its body still trembled, its eyes fixed on the fading sun, as if remembering something long forgotten. Aaron could sense that this was not merely a creature of flesh and blood, but something older, something bound to the very land itself. The air seemed to pulse with life, and the dust around their feet began to stir, as if awakened from sleep. "You should not have helped me," the dragon said, its voice fragile yet filled with strange wisdom. "Humans do not give without expecting return, and yet you gave all you had." Why? Aaron looked down at his empty canteen lying in the dirt. He thought about the question, but no answer came at first. Finally he said, "Because you asked, and because no one else would." The dragon blinked slowly, as if weighing his words, then nodded, a faint smile curling at the edges of its mouth, a gesture almost human. The glow around it softened, like a sunset fading into twilight. Aaron felt the exhaustion settling into his bones, the long days of walking, the thirst, the heat, all catching up to him. His vision blurred slightly, but he forced himself to stay awake, to keep watching this impossible being before him. Night came swiftly, and the desert transformed. The air grew cold enough to sting the wind, carrying whispers that seemed to echo from far beyond the cliffs. Aaron built a small fire from dry roots and broken branches, the flame flickering weakly but enough to keep them both warm. He looked at the dragon child lying close to the fire, its breathing calm now, eyes half closed, reflecting the light like pools of molten gold. For a moment the world felt still, peaceful, almost sacred, and Aaron realized he was not afraid, not of what the creature was, not of what might come. He felt something he had not felt since before the war, since before the loss of everything he cared for. He felt a love. The dragon child spoke again, softly, almost as if dreaming. The world above has forgotten us. The mountains no longer echo our songs. The rivers no longer carry our reflection. Humans once walked beside us before greed turned them blind, but perhaps not all have lost their hearts. Perhaps there is still hope. Aaron listened to words sinking deep into him like roots into dry soil. He stared into the fire, its light dancing across his tired face, and he thought that maybe, just maybe, this meeting was not chance at all, but the beginning of something that the world had been waiting. Fourth night deepened around them, and the stars stretched across the sky like silver rivers flowing through darkness. Aaron sat beside the small fire, his eyes heavy but his mind awake, thoughts swirling like the smoke that drifted upward into the endless black. He had seen many strange things in his life, but nothing like this. No story, no legend could have prepared him for the sight of a living dragon, even one so small, even one so fragile. The dragon child lay close to the flames, its body still glowing faintly under the tattered cloak Aaron had given it. Each breath slow and steady, its scales shimmered like moonlight caught in water. Aaron watched the creature, wondering how such beauty could exist in a place so empty and harsh. He wondered what kind of world it came from, a world where dragons once ruled the skies and men still believed in wonder. He reached for his pack, pulling out a piece of dried bread, the last of his rations. He looked at it for a long time, thinking of the road ahead and how little he had left to survive the next day. Yet when the dragon opened its eyes again, weak but curious, he broke the bread in two and held out a piece. The creature tilted its head, puzzled, but accepted it gently, teeth barely touching the food before swallowing it down. Roan smiled faintly. It felt strange to smile again. He had forgotten what that felt like. He leaned back against the rock, staring up at the stars, their cold light spilling across his face, and in that moment he thought of the stories his mother once told him before the wars, when he was still a child, sitting by the fire, listening to tales of dragons and heroes, of people who gave not because they must, but because their hearts told them to. He had never believed those stories until now. The dragon child spoke, its voice softer now, yet filled with something ancient. When the sky burns, we sleep beneath the earth. When the rivers fade, we fade with them. And when humans forget, we become nothing but dust and memory. You found me on the edge of death and gave what little you had. No one has done that for a long time. Aaron turned his gaze toward the fire. The words settled inside him, heavy and quiet. He wanted to ask why the creature was here, why it was alone, why the world had forgotten it, but the dragon closed its eyes again, its body curling tighter as though gathering strength. The night wind shifted, carrying a low hum that seemed to echo faintly through the canyon, a sound that was not wind nor stone, but something alive, something weight. Pulled his cloak tighter around himself, feeling the chill creep into his bones. His eyes lingered on the dragon one last time before sleep finally took him, and as he drifted into dreams, he thought he saw wings spreading over him like shadows of light, and for the first time in years he slept without fear. When dawn broke, the first light touched the cliffs, painting them in soft gold and crimson hues. The desert that had looked dead the night before now shimmered with quiet beauty. Aaron stirred from sleep, his body sore from the hard ground, his mind hazy with dreams he could barely remember. He sat up, blinking against the brightness. The fire had long gone cold, and beside him, the dragon child still lay wrapped in his cloak, breathing slow and calm. For a moment he thought it was still asleep, until its eyes opened, glowing faintly in the morning light, and it lifted its head to look at him. "You stayed," the dragon said, its voice carrying a tone that was neither question nor surprise, simply truth. Aaron rubbed his eyes and nodded without words, his throat dry again, his lips cracked, the last of his water gone since the night before. He could feel the weight of thirst already creeping through him, but he forced a small smile and said quietly, "Seemed wrong to leave you alone." The dragon studied him for a moment, then unfolded its wings slowly, their scales catching the sun, each feather-like edge glimmering with color though faint as if still healing. It stood shakily but stronger than before, the golden light within it pulsing in time with its heartbeat, the sound faint but deep, echoing softly through the ravines. "You gave your water to me," said the dragon, "and yet you suffered the thirst." Now Aaron shrugged, the gesture slow and tired. "We all suffer something," he said. "It is not what we lose that defines us, but what we choose to give." The words surprised even him. He was not sure why he said them or what they truly meant, but the dragon seemed to understand, its gaze softening with something like sorrow. The wind moved gently through the canyon, carrying with it a scent that had not been there before, something fresh, something alive. Aaron frowned, tilting his head, listening, and somewhere distant he heard the faint sound of running water, a thin echo like a promise. He rose unsteady on his feet, scanning the cliffs and there beyond the stones. A shimmer of movement, light catching on water that flowed from a crack in the rock. Clear and pure. He blinked, unable to believe it. He turned toward the dragon, but it only smiled, a quiet, knowing look in its eyes. "Go drink, human," it said. "You have given enough for now." Aaron hesitated, then hurried toward the stream, falling to his knees at its edge and scooping the cold water into his hands. It tasted sweeter than anything he had ever known, the relief washing through him like life itself returning. When he looked back, the dragon stood tall now, wings half spread, the glow around it brighter than ever, and for the first time Aaron realized it was not merely surviving, it was awakening. Aaron drank deeply, the cold water filling his mouth and throat, easing the dryness that had gripped him for days. Each swallow felt like life, returning his heartbeat, slowing his breath, steadying. He cupped more water in his hands, watching it sparkle. In the morning light, it ran clear over the stones, catching the sunlight and scattering it like glass. He had not seen water like this in so long. It felt almost holy. When he turned back, the dragon child was watching him, its eyes bright and clear. Now its bafta stronger, the cracks along its scales no longer dull but faintly glowing, the same golden hue as the rising sun. Aaron wiped his mouth and stood, feeling strength return to his limbs. He asked softly, "Where did this water come from?" And the dragon tilted its head, looking toward the cliffs. "The world gives back what it takes when kindness is remembered." Aaron did not understand, but he did not question it. The words felt true, even if reason could not explain them. The air around them felt lighter, the canyon no longer cold and silent but alive with quiet sounds. The whisper of wind, the trickle of water, the faint rustle of wings somewhere far above. It was as though the world itself had drawn a breath after centuries of stillness. The dragon stretched its wings, testing them. Their shadow fell across Aaron, covering him in warmth. He looked up in awe. The creature was still small, yet its presence filled the ravine like something far greater than its size. Its eyes reflected the sky, and for a heartbeat Aaron saw himself in them, not as a broken wanderer but as something more, as a man who had chosen compassion when the world had chosen cruelty. The dragon stepped closer, lowering its head so their eyes met once more. "You did not save me alone, human," it said. "You saved what still remains of belief between our kinds." Aaron frowned, unsure what to say. He wanted to ask what it meant, but the dragon continued, its voice soft but strong. "Long ago, humans and dragons shared the same breath of the wool. We guarded it together. Then came greed and fear and the silence that buried us, but the bond was never fully broken. It waited for one act of giving air and listened, each word sinking deeper than he expected." The wind picked up, swirling dust and light around them like a gentle storm. The dragon's wings lifted higher, feathers of gold and crimson unfurling wide across the canyon walls. Aaron could feel the heat of power radiating from it, not as fire but as life itself. "You gave me water," said the dragon, "but what you truly gave was faith." Aaron took a step back, shielding his eyes as the light grew brighter, filling every corner of the ravine, and for the first time in years, he felt not lost, not empty, but part of something vast and eternal. The light that poured from the dragon filled the ravine with warmth and color. The dull gray stones shimmered like glass. The air itself seemed to breathe with new life. Aaron stood frozen, unable to look away. His shadow stretched long behind him, swallowed by the brilliance that surrounded the creature. He could hear the faint echo of 1,000 voices, though no one else was there, a song older than time itself, humming through the wind and the ground and his own chest. The dragon, Charlie, lifted its wings higher and higher until they brushed the cliff walls, the golden light rippling through each scale, its body growing stronger, its shape clearer, no longer a frail and dying thing, but radiant and alive. Aaron felt the ground tremble beneath his feet, not with fear but with power, as if the world had just awakened from a deep sleep. He watched in awe as cracks in the dry earth filled with streams of running water that sparkled in the sunlight flowing down into the valley. Below he took a step forward, eyes wide. "What is happening?" he whispered, his voice almost lost to the hum of the wind. The dragon turned its gaze toward him and smiled, a gentle knowing smile. "The balance returns when kindness is given freely," it said. "And as you gave without expecting, you have restored what was fading." Aaron looked around the canyon, now alive with light and growth. Small shoots of green sprouting through the soil, birds calling from distant rocks, the smell of rain in the air, though no clouds were in sight. "You mean this place was dying?" he asked, and the dragon nodded. "The land reflects the hearts of those who walk it when men forget compassion. The earth grows silent when mercy is shown, even once the silence begins to break." Aaron felt a lump in his throat as he realized the truth of those words. All his wandering, all his pain had led him here, not to find redemption for himself, but to give it to the world without even knowing. The dragon lowered its head until its eyes met his again, the fire in them soft and deep. "You may not see the full change," it said, "but the world will remember, and so will I." It stepped closer, its scales brushing against his hand, warm and smooth and alive. For a brief moment the glow passed from its body into his, a surge of light filling his chest, spreading through every vein and breath until he felt weightless. Then the dragon lifted its wings once more, the air swirling around them with the scent of rain and new life. Aaron could only stand and watch as it leaped from the ground, rising through the light like a flame set free, its body shining brighter and brighter until it was nothing but a star in the morning sky. And even then he could still hear its voice inside him, gentle and eternal. "You gave me water and I gave you the world." On the light faded slowly, leaving behind a quiet golden haze that drifted through the air like dust caught in dawn. Aaron stood alone at the edge of the ravine, his eyes fixed on the empty sky where the dragon had vanished, his heart still racing, the sound of wings still echoing faintly in his mind. The silence that followed was not the silence of death, but of peace, deep and wide and full of meaning, the kind that settles over a place that has been healed. He looked down at his hands, still glowing faintly with warmth before the light faded from them too. He flexed his fingers, feeling the strange calm that now filled his body, the ache of thirst gone, the fatigue that had haunted him for weeks gone, replaced by a strength that was not his own. He knelt beside the stream that now ran freely across the rocks, dipping his hands into the cool water and letting it wash over his skin. It felt alive, as if it breathed with him. The world around him had changed. Where the earth had been cracked and lifeless, now small flowers began to bloom in the corners. Between stones the air smelled of grass and rain. The canyon, once gray, now shimmered with color. Aaron rose to his feet slowly, his eyes tracing the new life unfolding before him. He could hear distant sounds, birds calling, laughter of water, and in that moment he understood that the world itself had heard the dragon's song. He turned toward the horizon, the sun climbing higher, painting the valley in light. He knew he could not stay here forever. The road still waited, and the world beyond still suffered from the same wounds that had brought him to wander, but now he carried something within him, something bright and unbreakable. He would walk again, not to escape, but to bring what he had seen to others, even if they would not believe him, even if they thought him mad. He would tell them that kindness can move mountains, and that compassion can wake the sleeping heart of the earth. As he climbed out of the ravine, he paused one last time, looking back at the place where it had all begun, and there upon a stone half buried in sand lay a single scale gleaming like gold. He picked it up and held it in his palm, the light within it pulsing softly like a heartbeat. He smiled faintly and tucked it close to his chest beneath his shirt, feeling its warmth against his skin, a promise that he would never be alone again. When he reached the top of the ridge, the wind carried a low hum, the same ancient tone he had heard before, his song without words that spoke of balance and memory and hope. He closed his eyes, letting it wash over him, and for the first time since his journey began, he felt whole. The dragon was gone, but the spirit remained in the water, in the wind, and in the quiet strength of his own heart. And so Aaron walked on into the morning light, a wanderer no longer lost but found in the simple truth that to give without measure is to live forever. Asterisk.